It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us is Patti Maguire Armstrong, who wrote the book Holy Hacks, Everyday Ways to Live Your Faith and Get to Heaven. Thanks for being here, Patti.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
So, for everyday ways to live out your faith and get to heaven, what is something that you do every day for your own spiritual growth?
Well, I definitely start the day talking to God, and I'm sure most people do that, so they wouldn't say, oh, that's a holy hack. But just talking to Him throughout the day, maybe saying little prayers, and there's so many ways to integrate your faith into your life. I used to say my prayers in the morning and then at night and think, gosh, I really have kind of ignored God through most of the day. And so I was always realizing, how can I put Him in my day throughout the day? And really, once it becomes a habit, like He's never not with you, whether, for instance, one of my favorites is when I water this plant that somebody gave me, I always say a prayer for that person. Or, if I stop at a red light, I think of it as a trigger, like, okay, I'm going to pray for somebody now.
Yeah.
Just things like that.
I think that idea, like the triggers, like the things that remind you to do something, it fits in really well with this idea of life hacks, which is all over the internet, and all kinds of different things that they're doing as this is a life hack, or how to hack this system and use this for something that wasn't intended, like IKEA hacks and things like that. What do you think is specific about holy hacks? How would you describe that to somebody?
Well, the whole idea, all of a sudden, the idea came for me for holy hacks, and I ended up writing an article on it on the National Catholic Register, and it did extremely well. But when I first came up with the idea for holy hacks, I thought, well, life hacks are ways to make your life easier, quicker, clever ways. And so what's more important than everlasting life? So we could do the same thing with holy hacks. And that holiness has a bad reputation, I think, for most of us. We think, oh, it's going to be so hard, it's going to be torturous. But really, it's about just little by little changing your life, striving for holiness. It doesn't have to be torturous. We're supposed to die to ourselves, but it doesn't have to be an overnight slaughter. It can just be these little simple, painless ways that we are actually increasing our capacity for holiness, not causing ourselves undue suffering, so that it just becomes a habit of how to really expand ourselves and just grow closer to God that way.
But is it also dangerous to maybe go the other direction and to think that holiness is going to be easy? Is that maybe counterproductive as well? Well,
sort of, but no, because you said thinking it's going to be easy. I would say that what we have to guard against is taking the easy path all the time. I don't want to do the hard things because, holiness is going to have some challenges and difficulties. We have to make the hard choices sometimes. And that's sometimes the ways that we can grow in holiness. I put under the chapter on prayers, one of the things I said is to kneel during prayers, because that's the harder thing. For me, I always feel like, oh, I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, maybe I'm going to kneel for part of my rosary. Doing the harder thing sometimes is what I suggest in the holy hacks. For instance, under the chapter on humility, humility isn't easy. That in and itself is a hard thing. And so picking, like if you go somewhere and you pick up someone's garbage, that's an act of humility. You don't have to make a big deal about it. But I wouldn't say it's the easy thing. It's easier not to do it, or letting somebody go in line ahead of you. And so, but it's not extremely painful. That's what I'm saying. We don't have to. I'm not telling everybody to put on hair shirts. I'm not telling you not to either. But I'm just saying that doesn't have to be the way. Look for those little things to do the harder thing. Humility all the way around is dying to yourself, doing something that's more difficult, because we naturally don't want to be humble. It doesn't come easy.
Well, and I suppose if you're trying to get from one place to another, you could take 10 big leaps or maybe 30 or 40 little tiny steps. Either way, you're going to get there. And I think a lot of times with our schedules and family and whatever else you got going on, school or work, it might be easier for you to fit in a bunch of little things than to try to make these huge sacrifices. But ultimately, they add up if you're kind of constantly doing this. And I suppose, too, there's an advantage to doing them throughout the day, doing a bunch of little things throughout the day rather than maybe just like one big thing in the morning and then kind of putting our faith aside for the rest of the day.
And, that's pretty much like I start the day going to Mass. And like I said, I'll pray in the morning and pray at night. And then it was like, well, gee, I kind of forgot God the whole rest of the day. I did a big thing in the morning. I went to Mass. But what about the rest of the day? And like you say, all those little things, they add up. They add up to become a habit. And it's like we always hear that people don't keep their New Year's resolutions, hardly anybody.
Right.
Because we came up with this big life-changing resolution, and then we didn't keep it, because it was like, I guess I'm not going to go to the gym at 6 a.m. before work every day because it's just not fitting in with my life. These things fit in with your life. They're not hard things, but they're everyday things. One of my favorites is just learning gratitude and being thankful. For instance, abstaining from complaining. That's not a huge thing, but it is a huge thing. You think, if I just stop, I'm about to complain and I stop myself. Well, you didn't do this, impossible thing. But if that becomes a habit, you've done something huge in your life. I referenced a priest who mentioned doing a rosary of gratitude. And when I first heard of that, and he said it was life-changing for him. It is, because the things that you used to complain about, suddenly you're thanking God for, in some cases. I mean, there's lots and lots of things to be thankful for. For myself, like, for instance, when you have a lot of children or, you have a baby and you have to get up because they're crying and you're, awoken from your sleep, most of us are like, oh, boy, or maybe we're complaining, or, when you're pregnant and you have to get up to use the bathroom throughout the night, like, oh, brother. But in reality, if you stop and think, you get a flat tire, when you stop and think of all the blessings in there, like I have a warm bed to come back to. I have running water and plumbing, and I have a child. How many people don't have children and would pray and love to get up in the middle of the night? That, yes, I have a flat tire, but I have a car. I can call a tow truck. It's not the end of my world. I still will be able to get to work or get home. When you stop and think about all the blessings in the things that we complain about, we can start thanking God. And we're going to have, I referenced Jeff Cavins wrote this book on suffering, and it really opened my eyes to all the low-level suffering that we are wasting, that is spiritual collateral. Now, in that case, we aren't doing one thing extra. We're doing absolutely nothing except going along for the ride and realizing, wait a minute, this is happening. I might as well benefit from it. I can offer this up for my intentions. I can thank God for the blessings that I have not even been realizing, not even appreciating. Instead, I've been complaining about these things. Otherwise, most of us don't have perfect days. So then we're complaining about every little thing. So instead of complaining, we can offer it up. So instead of sinning and being ungrateful, we now are getting graces. So there's a holy hack that the only thing that you're changing is your attitude.
Yeah. We're talking with Patti Maguire Armstrong, and the book is Holy Hacks, Everyday Ways to Live Your Faith and Get to Heaven. And you talked a little bit about a couple of the chapters in the book. Can you talk about how you broke down the book and what some of the different topics are in the different chapters?
Well, it came quite easily. I originally thought, that Holy Hacks is a holy hack, because I didn't think I was going to write any more books because it's hard. It's a lot of work. And I said, okay, Lord, if you want me to write another book, then you let me know, make it clear to me. And so this article became very popular. And then I had all these ideas. I thought, well, this could be a book. And I started jotting down all the different possible topics like spiritual protection, evangelizing. Who likes to evangelize? Oh, gosh, that's weird. It's hard. And I have a whole chapter on, actually, it doesn't have to be. Simple little things like even at the checkout counter say, thanks, have a good day, God bless you. I started doing that, and it's like not that big of a deal. People smile. I mean, it isn't. It's like nothing.
Right.
And yet you're evangelizing, and I've gotten wonderful reactions from people that just light up and go, oh, God bless you too. The worst reaction I've gotten is, okay, thanks. I mean, like, that is not a big deal. Or holy hacks against gossiping. And by the time you get to the chapter, you're going to be realize you are not going to want to gossip, because who wants the reputation as a gossip? Nobody does. And so it just kind of brings things to your attention and why you don't want to gossip. Or I consulted a lot of Catholics in the media and said, hey, what are your holy hacks? And I thought, wow, I never would have thought of that. Holy hacks for Lent. Hello, here we are, where I talk about prayers, almsgiving that we often forget about, fasting, easy ways to fast, so like almsgiving, things like walking into your closet and take something out of there that you actually kind of like and giving it away to a charitable cause. Or fasting. Why don't you fast at every meal? Like, don't put mustard on your sandwich, skip the fries. Fasting is so powerful. We hear that, there's some demons that can only be exercised with prayer and fasting.
Right.
And fasting is, I realize it's not my strong point, but it's powerful. So why am I not doing more of it? Well, there's ways that we can slip it in. That fasting seems like a big deal. Like, if we don't put mustard on our sandwich, suddenly our sandwich isn't as good as it was.
Right.
But here's little sacrifices. But then good, because like you said, we talked about things being hard. Well, okay, it's not the end of the world. It feels hard to us, and so we really are doing something. So we should feel like we're doing something once in a while. But it's not the end of the world that we didn't put mustard or mayonnaise on our sandwich. My dad and I had a conversation about this, and I talk about my dad. He's 93 now. And what an example he was, because he didn't make a big deal about his faith, but he was always practicing it. And we talked about fasting. And a lot of people say, oh, I can't fast. I've heard that so many times. Oh, I can't fast. I have this health problem or this dietary restriction. And my dad and I were talking about that. And I said, well, what do you have for breakfast every day? And he says, well, I have an egg on toast. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what if you ate that egg separate from the toast? All of a sudden, it's a sacrifice. And he goes, oh, yeah, you're right. And so thinking about ways to make sacrifices doesn't even have to be a change in what you're doing, just how you're doing it.
Yeah. And I suppose why you're doing it that way as well, too. Just kind of remembering that this is something that you're sacrificing and offering up. Well, this is such a great book. There's so many little tips. Like, you just read through it and you just quickly read 3 of them on accident. So, I mean, it's a great thing to just keep around and look and be inspired by. Where can people get a copy of the book?
Well, the publisher is Ave Maria Press. You can go there and get it, and it's on both Kindle and paperback.
All right. Again, it's called Holy Hacks, Everyday Ways to Live Your Faith and Get to Heaven. Patti Maguire Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us today. And people are just going to have to pick up the copy and read through this. It's so great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cal. God bless your day.